All right, all right. Oh, yes, you, right on time. Come on up. Come on up. Yes. Excited to kick off this this portion of the afternoon. This portion will kick off much of our investor track. So this is our inaugural investor track, and so really excited to kick off this track for this year. I've been peppering Rachel and Seema for the past 2 years to start to plug in some investor content. There's just as many investors as founders and entrepreneurs that come to this event. So how do we make sure that they also get the content that they're looking for? So whether you're a GP, LP, an angel, or you're a founder that wants to have a peek into the lens from an investor perspective, that's the reason that we want to host this session or this track. And so really excited to be able to host it. Didn't do it alone. And really didn't do much of the work at all. I really probably did 10%. But I want to introduce really quickly our track leads just so you know who they are and who helped curate a lot of the sessions for this evening. So if you can help me welcome Blair and Navia.
Thank you, Darius. Yeah, it was our great pleasure to bring you the investor programming to today and Friday. We're both here on behalf of District Angels, which is a new angel investing collective that's trying to galvanize a lot of dormant capital in the DMV. As I'm sure each of you is learning, there's a lot of untapped potential, both from founders as well as investors. And we're hoping to use our programming, shared infrastructure, and build a lot of community around energizing and investing capital, innovation here locally.
Yeah. And we're super excited to bring you a sports-focused panel because sports meaning investing, meaning this ecosystem, how can you go wrong? So let's bring the actual people of the hour up on stage and we can have Adam introduce them.
Hey, everybody. Give them a welcome clap, please. I will whose microphone do I have? Does somebody not have? You have a microphone? We all have microphones. Okay, good.
Test.
Hi, everybody. Thank you guys for joining. Appreciate you taking the time. It's always fun to have conversations with people who want to talk, and I always appreciate it. I never take that for granted. So my name is Adam Phillips, managing partner for Athletes Innovate Ventures. I'm really excited to have this panel today with people who know more than me. I try to surround myself with smarter people than me, and this is no exception. So we're going to talk a little bit about Beyond the Scoreboard here. And this will mean a lot of different things, I think, and can mean a lot of different things. But one of the things we want to really talk about or really focus on is kind of the expanding role of athletes. Athletes have always been iconoclasts. They've always been larger than life, more than just the scoreboard, of course. But that seems to only be increasing. I think my theory is that in a 2D world, the 3D world is getting more and more important. And a big part of that is sports. So I want to have a conversation with people here who I'm actually going to have introduce themselves because I will not know all the things they do really well, except for Josh. I know him too well. And I'll tell you a story about Josh a little bit later that is perfectly indicative of who he is, but you'll see that in a second. But I'm going to start with Sophie. Sophie Gage, please introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good to be here. My name is Sophie Gage. I work for the NFL Players Association, which is the union for professional football players, and spend most of my time on the for-profit arm that we have, which runs the licensing and marketing business for the players.
Thank you very much. Patrick Klein.
Awesome. Patrick Klein, go by PK, but I am the operating partner of a venture firm in Columbus, Ohio called Vessel Investment Group. I pretty much handle the day-to-day operations of the whole firm, but also run and operate our venture studio. So when we think about ideation, after our research and diligence team hands it off, they give it to me and see how fast I can get to market. We have a 6-month time frame, so we're moving very fast, and we do a lot of investing across multiple platforms. So a venture fund, we have an angel collective as well called the Ohio Angel Collective and the United States Angel Collective with states like Kentucky, Michigan, and Ohio in the Midwest. And we also have an advisory council as well. So thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Has anybody here built a business? Building a business in 6 months and then another one 6 months later, does that make you tired just hearing it out loud like it makes me tired hearing it out loud? That's very cool. Thank you, Patrick. Joshua, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh, introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. I just had a story to tell.
No, you go.
My apologies. My name is Joshua Reed. I'm the founder and CEO of Lunch Table, and we do fan activation, fan engagement, primarily for sports teams, QSR, and CPG brands.
I love it. And the quick story on how I met Mr. Reed, who's a wonderful dude. I got the great opportunity to invest in his company, and it came by way of multiple people calling me, telling me I needed to meet this guy, Joshua Reed. And on about the fourth call, I was like, okay, I'm never going to talk to this guy. Like, I'm never going to.
So he thought.
I literally was like, no. The name John? No, I'm out. And then we got on the phone, and I immediately was like, okay, yeah, I got to invest in this dude. So this is our CEO on the panel, although we also have a CEO who does every 6 months, which is incredible. But I want you've got to meet this guy, and you'll get the experience like I got the experience.
Thank you. Adam's been a great support. They reinvest into our C round, so we raised $3 million to date, and we're scaling, and it's really working. So without his support, we wouldn't be here today. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
No, absolutely. And you're crazy as an investor not to invest in CEOs who you want to see win and who can win clearly. Okay, I'm going to throw this to the panel, and you guys can choose who goes first. Trend of athletes, of course, seems to be accelerating them as cultural leaders and really as platforms themselves. And some of that is them as, of course, as brands or participants in brands. Some of that is more and more increasingly as investors or, kind of equity side, whether LPs or GPs. Can you talk about where you're seeing it and maybe some of the kind of the new things that seem to be popping up in your worlds? Anybody want to jump into that?
Yeah, sure, I'll start. I mean, I'm coming at this from the athlete lens, and I think a lot of what we do is really looking at the player in his entire life cycle. So as he's coming into the league, who he is as a player in the NFL, some players play a very long time, some players play a really short time. So they all have different experiences, and then who they are after they're out of the NFL and what kind of businesses or careers that they take on after that. And I think one of the changes that we're seeing is just a trend towards a lot more entrepreneurial spirit among athletes. And that's not just football players. I think that's all athletes, and it's front and center. Like, you can see it anywhere you look. And so I think, the age of social media has certainly changed athletes as brands. And it's great to see athletes leaning into that. And I think, could talk for a long time about that. But I definitely think that the time is shifting to a very much an investor mindset and a business mindset.
And so most of us probably know, does anybody old enough like me to remember the Mean Joe Green, hey kid, and then throwing nobody's that old? Okay, sorry. So athletes as endorsers, of course, kind of that's a mode we're used to seeing. But as you see athletes, and especially kind of the guys in the NFL, moving more towards the equity side, like, what is it they're wanting? Are you hearing them talk about, are themes coming up, like in the things that they're looking for? Like, how are you seeing it from your side?
I think it depends. I mean, we represent there's so many different players, and they're all different, and they all want different things. But, increasingly over the years, we've certainly heard that players wanting to invest, and that may take different forms. It may be, I want to be super active. It may be, I want to be a founder and start my own business. And we've seen that. Like, players have the side hustles that they do, or they have their teams doing a side hustle for them. Or it could be, players as LPs. It could be players as angels. It could be players as advisors. We see a lot of that too. So I think it really just depends on who the player is and what his upbringing is and what is he. And if you look at other sports too, I mean, you see a lot in women's sports. They have full-blown businesses outside, and a lot of that is because they have to, because they're not. You're not necessarily your on-field check or your on-court check is cutting it, and you kind of have to do some other things too. But I definitely think it's universal, and it varies.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'd love to dive into more too, but we'll hold. Patrick.
Yeah, I'll take it from a different angle. I think my introduction to working with athletes came when I helped be a founding team member for a video game company in Columbus, Ohio called eFuse. And what we're seeing in Columbus, Ohio, with Ohio State University and NIL and how it's growing, you're seeing these athletes now become business leaders way before they get to the NFL, or if they even get there, because they're getting cash. They're deploying that cash into real estate, into franchises, into startups, in the ecosystem that's surrounding them in the community. And we were really lucky early on at eFuse to get people like OBJ and Seth Curry and Braxton Miller, who, within those names, he doesn't live up to that hype. but Braxton as a community person in Columbus, Ohio is as good as it gets. And so when you think about getting athletes involved, what makes them really special, and we talked about this earlier, Adam, is that they show up every day. They want to be more involved. They want to learn the business side of things. They want to understand how to fundraise for their next idea that they have. And Josh is we're really proud in Ohio to have Josh, because he represents everything that we want in a founder, somebody that shows up every day, he's a part of the community, and he's building something that's extra valuable. So he's a great example sitting on the stage right now.
Yeah, I love that. Hit me.
Yes, and I really appreciate that. You know, I think as an athlete, engineer, turned founder, CEO, I thought it's levels, because not every athlete is one and the same. You have some athletes who play the game because they're good and they love it. And then you have some athletes who play the game because there's no other option. So the level of intensity is different. And I was the one that had no other option. Like school and sports had to work. So I feared for the competition, because someone who loved to play the game and that they could play because they wanted to, they may have had the privilege to take a year off after high school because they want to figure it out. I didn't have that option. So if it's me versus you to get there, I feel sorry for you. It's going to be uncomfortable. And so we take that same level of intensity to startup, right? And fortunately, you know, as a startup, we did have an athlete turn investor, Ty Montgomery. You guys know Ty Montgomery? So Ty Montgomery is one of our investors. And when we met, we had the same DNA, and it was instant. It was an instant matchmaking right there. And we shot a commercial together to announce the investment and him coming on as an advisor. And so that level of intensity is different than someone who can't tap into it, because in startup, nothing goes the way you plan it, but it's all about how you respond to it. And we figured it out.
I love that. By the way, if you don't know, Josh's camera is the size of like most people's bodies. And he will shoot a commercial with you, I swear to you, if you let him. This dude is always ready to rock.
You stay ready, you don't got to get ready. You know how that go.
I told you he's ready to go. He's ready to go right now.
I'm being reserved, but I'm getting warmed up, though, you know.
I want to jump on something you said, too, because long-term thesis of mine is that essentially sports is real-time innovation. And it's live, like it's happening right now. You had your plan. You built the muscles, you built the plan and all that, and then something happened. The ball was rolled out, the first ball was thrown, you took the first hit, and then you had to adjust. So it's real-time innovation. Talk to me about how that translates to the startup life, because there's so much about, I mean, as you know, it's about like every day is different, but it's not like you can just change or completely pivot every day. Like, what does it feel like? How does that relate?
Yeah, well, you can't just change now, because you have investors, you have a board of directors, you have people who's put money into your idea, right? And so in this sport, you have to be flexible. You can't be rigid. And you have to love the problem, not the solution. And things never go as planned. But like they say, life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you respond to it. And in this game, it's about staying alive long enough to see the opportunity coming to fruition. And I don't know what it's like not to wake up turned up. So I can't give you advice on how do you feel, Josh, when days you don't want to work. I always want to work. In fact, I struggle with holidays because everybody want to take off. I want to work, right? You know, I'm trying to get contracts and everybody trying to go on vacation. And so it's a gift and a curse too, because, you know, I have a wife that's a physician. She's an OBGYN. I got two beautiful babies, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. So it's important to also know how to be in the moment as well. So there's no balance, it's just focus. I get it done. Before I go to sleep, I gotta hit the gym. I gotta take care of the family. I gotta get to work. It's not about the 8 hours of sleep. I don't function like that, because I can't sleep if I got work I haven't done yet. It got to get done, and that's how it translates. And from sports to business, you have to be flexible. If you're trying to get 2 weeks of vacation, weekends off, this ain't for you, because you're going against me. I don't take weekends off. I'm always on. And so how do you compete with someone who's always on when you want a different lifestyle that's not required to be successful in startup?
I love it. And there's a panel right after this where we're going to get another chance to talk to some folks at the NFLPA as well about essentially unlocking performance. And it's this cycle. It's this, sometimes you got to go all the way and you sort of have to go too hard. And then you have to stop sometimes, because you can't do that forever. So really, really interesting stuff. Sophie, I want to jump off something Patrick said and started to allude to, the idea of place, like sports and place. Like as athletes show up in themselves as the high performers they are, and I'll say this in both panels, I think of them as essentially they get to visit these alien planets, and it's Planet Athlete or Planet NFL or Planet NBA, but they don't get to live there forever, but they visit there, and we don't know what that is. Like the value, talk to me about the value of place when a Buffalo Bill shows up in my world. I love, like anything they offer me, I want to know about. I want to buy, I want to participate because I'm from Buffalo. You know, talk to me about the value of place or how you've seen that play out and kind of how these athletes become more than just athletes.
Yeah, I think the way we see it, I mean, in the NFL, there's league sponsors and then there's club sponsors. And obviously, you know, you see them when you're watching a game in your local market. They lean into the stars in that local market, because if you had someone from another market on that ad, it wouldn't resonate. So I think you just naturally see it show up like that. You know, the players, it's interesting. If you look at their big time players have way bigger reach than a lot of clubs. You know, if you look at the QBs or you look at the star players, like they just have incredible reach. So and that's not just limited to their place. So I think they have the benefit of both. You know, obviously the players are transient. Some have the benefit, I guess you could call it, if that's where they want to be, where they spend their entire career in a certain location, and then they're just become ingrained in the fabric of that town. Yeah. And then you have some that move around a lot, and they're still like they're more loved universally. But I think it's certainly nice when you see the local communities lean in, and then you see the players lean back into the communities. I would say a lot of what we see is the philanthropic side of players, and they pour back in, and they have charities that are focused in different areas, usually their club or their home environment or maybe where they grew up. So yeah, I mean, I think place is a really critical aspect.
Yeah, I love that. And you think about it from the perspective too of like, you know, if you play in a certain college, like if you play at UT, you know, you're never going to buy a drink in Austin again. Like, it doesn't matter if you made it to the NFL even, like, or the NBA. Like, if you play at UT, like, you're a legend in Austin, and that could be incredibly valuable. So I love that. Patrick, would love to hear you talk a little bit about the idea of, or riff off the idea of like fans. Can you see from your seat as an investor and somebody who's seen, you know, people grow businesses and you grow businesses yourself, what could it mean, or what does it look like for athletes to have fans? And as they change kind of their role in this whole process, or really expand their role, has that changed anything about the fans and how they relate to them?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about how many companies are being built on influencing, or in the video game space, you know, it's every day with influencers on Twitch. We're seeing it in Instagram. We're seeing it across all different sectors. We're seeing people build brands for drop shipping on Amazon, making $1 million a month in you know, creatine gummies. So being able to bring fandom to any company, and that's the number one thing to go to market. You have to have somebody buy your product, whatever it is. So thinking about how you're going to go to market, thinking about who your customers are, athletes already have that baked within them. That through their college careers, high school careers, and now professional careers, they have something. Now, what is the value of that as a founder and activating athletes or getting them on board to participate with you? You have to do a great diligence to see where those athletes' fandom really does play off, because sometimes it may not be a fit for that product or a fit for this industry. But you have a customer, you have eyeballs. That's where, from the very get-go, the value starts. But what you realize with working with these athletes and their fans, they're very loyal. They've shown up for them. They've been a part of them. They've watched them grow up. So relationships over transactions is a core value that I live by. A lot of these athletes have lived it their whole life. So I think that's where the fandom starts.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love, just wanted to double click on the idea of the sort of the fit between the product, the offering, and the person. That's important one that I think often people miss. Like if I'm a 300-pound lineman, I'm not 300 pounds. Don't be thinking it yourselves. I'm probably not going to sell you, you know, a fine writing instrument unless I'm doing it sort of tongue in cheek. You know what I mean? Like the fit has to be right.
And I think that we've all watched a commercial and said, oh my gosh, that I would have never thought of that person in that role or with this brand. And you're like, this makes sense. Yeah. That's our job as founders, is finding our team and building our team, whether that be internal or external, to sell our product. And so that's where I think athletes are really special. They have a lot of knowledge of this because they've done this. And as the newer athlete comes through, you're seeing NIL happen in Ohio. In Ohio, it just got voted on that high school athletes can now take on money and stuff in Ohio. So you're going to start to see this education in real life, living in the fire, start to see this come through. And I think that it's a valuable thing, because do I go get somebody that's very expensive, a big name, that might not pay off? I mean, you talk a lot about micro influences, but in communities and the location, you can get somebody that's a lot smaller and a lot cheaper to come join your team and add a lot more value than you think, and get what you pay for ROI-wise.
Yeah. I love that. And I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, so Josh Allen can sell me anything, but, you know, the other guys can sell me too. Now, Josh, this is your whole business, dealing with the fans.
Yeah.
Enlighten us.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, to piggyback off of what PK said, athletes are marketable too. You know, and that helps in my business because a lot of my clients use me in their marketing promotion. And we shot a commercial for Kettle and Fire. The bone broth company put me in a commercial. I've never had bone broth before, but I did that day. Right? I put my face in a bowl of bone broth. Can you believe it? But it worked, right? So, but with us, the question that we wanted to answer in our technology is, how do brands and teams bring value to sponsors out of season? How do you engage your fans out of season? There's not an answer. It's lunch table. Because it's a fandom, as you mentioned. Fans talk about the teams they love for free on social media. So why not turn these fans into influencers and leverage it for both your brand and your sponsors? It's an untapped market. And so we took that concept to the Cincinnati Reds Major League Baseball team. I closed the owner in 15 minutes. He said, Josh, every single sports team has this issue. There's fragmented data, ticketing, e-commerce, emails, all siloed. Social engagement across fandom is completely untracked. We fixed that. There's operational inefficiencies. We don't have the staff to do it manually, right? You have these influencers, you email, you scout, you broker the deal via DMs on Instagram, and you pay them $5,000 a post. It doesn't convert. We've automated that. There's inconsistent brand storytelling across your teams. We're talking leagues now. Let's take the MILB, minor league baseball team organization. 120 teams. 5 teams do it okay. The other 5 don't do it at all. So it's inconsistent brand storytelling. We fixed that. And then lastly, answering the question, how do we engage you out of season? How do athletes bring value out of season, right? You have 1 million followers. What do you think the collective reach of 1 million people is? Perhaps 20 million. What if you went to your sponsor, hey guys, I have 1 million followers, but through Lunch Table, I got an additional reach of 20 million through my fans. And that's what we do. We incentivize your fandom, which is completely untapped today, and it's scaling like crazy. So if you want to get involved, talk to me afterwards. I'm on LinkedIn, all the channels, easy to find me. That's what's working.
I love it. Beautiful. Yeah, this all comes together ultimately with it's the athlete, it's the fans, it's also the investors, and
everybody wins.
It's a total.
It's a trifecta. The athlete wins, the brands wins, and the sponsor win as well.
Excellent. Love it. Sophie, we've been talking about athletes as sort of a new model. Talk to me on if, let's say I'm an investor and I am an investor, let's say I want to engage with athletes. How do you, especially at the NFLPA, but also how do you see it working more broadly, kind of outside? How do investors get involved with athletes, and how does it work well when it works well?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different ways you could go about it. It depends on how you want to work with the player. You know, we get brands all the time. Part of what we do on behalf of the players is we facilitate brands who want to work with athletes. That's easy, right? You go through their marketing reps, their agents, sometimes the athletes themselves. When it's athletes as investors, I think it's a little bit different. We have seen athletes becoming investors in brands. So you think about, you know, rather than, you know, pay to post, pay to be an endorser, pay to be on the cover of Madden, whatever it may be. You're seeing increasingly brands and athletes saying, like, I want upside, I want equity in this. So it's not just a cash payment anymore, it's actual skin in the game. I think a lot of times I feel like the athletes go out and look for these opportunities to get involved, whether it be through their network, if it's athlete as investor. And so, you know, if I was a founder in a company, I would think about how do I want to work with that athlete? Because I think what I've seen a lot of relationships that work well are athletes as advisors, because you can get an athlete as an ambassador, and you can give them some equity, and you can get them really invested in that company, like literally and figuratively, right? Invested in that company. But you can also, like, there's really creative ways that you can work together. You know, you can just bring them on as an advisor because they're super passionate about whatever it is, and it depends on whatever your market is that you want to get in. And then, you know, I've seen increasingly funds, you've probably seen them too, that are like literally funds made up of athletes from all sorts of sports globally as LPs. And they just, you know, people, what I can tell you from my, you know, many years of working at the NFLPA is people want sports on their cap table. They want athletes on, if they're getting value from them in, you know, sort of services or what advice, great. But even just having that brand recognition is huge. So I think there's a way to make it work. It's just, what are you looking to solve for?
Yeah, and I love that. What I heard recently that I thought was really creative is the idea of sort of building an equity pool, the advisor equity pool that's like typically kind of wasted a lot of times, and not, if you're an advisor in a startup, which I am too, I apologize. But it's because it's kind of time limited and you don't know exactly how long you're going to be offering the expertise. But with athletes, it's sort of evergreen. Like if you're on this athlete advisor equity pool, it's like, it's always good to have Steph Curry on your cap table. Like it's always a positive. So I kind of love that.
And I'll add to what Sophie just mentioned. You know, Ty Montgomery is one of the best advisors you ever have. His work ethic is almost as high as mine. You know, I mean, the guy was in the NFL, so he has to know something. But it's been amazing working with someone who knows how to win. Right. And most athletes that get to that next level, you have to know how to win. So I definitely agree with you 100% on that one, Sophie, for sure.
Adam, can I take this another way? So there's a lot of investors that don't know where to start or even how to invest in an athlete. And I think that one easy way to get involved with this is go see what some of these athletes are created as founders, like Josh. You know, we have, you know, just to name a few from the NFL, Kenny Anunike, it was Scalaware, a really cool technology and health tech company, former Denver Bronco, was part of the Super Bowl champs and the 50th year. Chase Winovich is doing something, and these are just Ohio guys, so that's why I'm shouting out. But Chase Winovich is doing something in security. There are plenty of former players, NFL players, and current players that are investing and creating and being founders from the get-go. Start by investing and adding value there, and then you can start to see how close and connected these young men are, these young women are, and that's an easy entrance because a lot of people sitting in the crowd, they may not know how to get to that. How do I start by investing in? I understand why I should invest in them, their success, their following, but they don't know how to start. I think start to look to see at some of the, and the NFLPA does amazing stuff to highlight those founders too.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd add, I mean, a very direct way, if you're a brand and you want to work with an athlete, see if there is an organization that represents those athletes, right? That is probably, and give them a call, because, you know, we have 40 people on our staff, and what we do is we bring opportunities to athletes, or we at least can say, you know, these are athletes that are may be interested in whatever, you know, may align with your company. So you know, if you have a direct line that you say, you know, I want this profile of a person, of an athlete for my brand, that's a good place to start, because otherwise, you know, there's so many of them, you got to track down their agents and all of that. So yeah. I would start there.
And that's a great point. I just want to stay on that for a second, because athletes, by their nature, since everybody wants to be around them, get a lot of requests. And so it's probably really, I imagine in your seat, you see it as important. Like there needs to be some clarity, like you need to be asking for something or in a category that they recognize. Like how do you see that playing out on your side?
Yeah, I mean, these athletes are inundated with opportunity. And so, you know, if you're looking to attach their face or their NIL to your brand, you're probably going to need to pay for it, unless there is, you know, a charitable element or something else. I mean, maybe there is an equity relationship that you can work out, but, you know, yes, having a very clear ask, this is how I envision you working with this brand, this is why it's meaningful. And then I think to what Patrick said earlier is it's fit, right? We really successful campaigns, you can see that the player, there's just an authentic match between, you know, if you try to force a player and you're just, you know, paying him to do whatever and he has no interest whatsoever, you're going to see that.
Yeah, and that's such an important point. Sorry, did I cut you off? No. Okay, that's such an important point. And this is true in a lot of fields, but in high ask fields, like, finance is a high ask field. Like if you have a fund, Patrick, a lot of people pitch you, right? You're going to walk around. If people know you're an investor, they're going to pitch you. I mean, it's like triple that for athletes. Like any place they go, like they're always getting offers. So I love that. I just wanted to double click on that. Let's talk about athletes specifically as founders. We have an athlete as a founder. I was a very good high school basketball player, so technically, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not comparing myself to real athletes. But talk to me on athletes as founders. How does it play itself out? Is it a good or bad thing? Spoiler alert, I think it's typically a good thing. But are there also some downsides as well? What are you guys seeing?
Okay, perfect. So I turned pro in bodybuilding back in 2013 and became the face of GNC, the vitamin store. And signed an endorsement deal, became a national spokesman. And in parallel to that, I was an electrical engineer. So you kind of got like this geek that also looks pretty cool, so it kind of works.
He was inspired by my bodybuilding journey, folks.
And so I modeled but I modeled all the fitness magazines. But to get to that level requires discipline, consistency, and sacrificing things that you enjoy to get to the next level. And so it translated perfectly into startup because startup requires discipline, consistency, and sacrifice. But I mentioned earlier, you may want weekends, you may want 2 weeks with vacation, but in this space I play in, sometimes you can have it. So you have to do the things you don't want to get the things you want later on. And so it translates perfectly, and I meet people like Tom Montgomery. He has the same mindset. Discipline is not an issue. I have a wife and 2 kids. I'm in the gym every day. I eat good. My team is taken care of because we're focused. And that sports and mindset of having to studies and go to practice and watch film, it all applies in startup. Just a different sport, but the same mindset. So it was an easy transition.
I love that. And I tell the story, and a lot of people have this story. You've played with, I played at Rucker Park in New York City, again, not because I was good, but because I was there, with guys who are as good or seemingly better than Kyrie Irving, crazy handles, dunk out of the gym, 6 foot shorter than me, but weren't in the pros, right? It's because they couldn't show up every day kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or maybe there are other things, but probably that.
And there's a risk too. There's a saying that says, your talent can take you places that your character can't keep you. And so in this sport too, you can get blinded by the lights. If you've never seen $1 million before, you get $1 million investment, do you do the right thing or the wrong thing? So you have to know how to execute as well, because your intelligence can get you to the next level, but it's about the execution afterwards. You get the capital, what you do with the capital. You get the opportunity, what you do with the opportunity. Right? And it has to work. So it means, and there's another thing, wisdom is knowing what to overlook. So you can't chase everything. You can do anything, but you can't do everything either. And knowing how to decipher the two is really important as a founder.
I love that. Sophie, Patrick?
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think all of those traits that you named are very positive that you'd see in an athlete. I'd add 2. I think one is, well, maybe 3. Teamwork, right? Like they're used to working on a team, and assuming that your company builds into a team, like that's a really useful skill. The other one I would say is adversity, though. Like the founder life is hard, and these guys or women are used to dealing with that, whether it's loss, injury, in career-ending injury, you know what I mean? It's so the ability to be flexible and fluid and work and recover from those sorts of things, I think are really positive traits that you see. And the other thing I would say is they're connected too, right? Like, so that always helps.
It does help.
Yeah, I'm going to go out. We're a pre-seed focused fund. So, it's very hard to underwrite in our area. It's very hard to pick winners this early. And so what you have to focus on is the jockey. Who is the founder at heart? Who are they? And what are the traits that succeed? And you guys talked a lot about it: grit, adversity, being able to push through those, we're made in the valley a lot of times as founders. But the 2 things that come up, and to me that I see the most successful founders be, is self-aware, being able to look at themselves in the mirror and identify what they're not good at, and verbalizing that with a team is so critically important, because then you can actually solve for the problems that you're seeing every day by finding a co-founder or hiring the right person to fill that void. The second thing is vulnerability. And you would think a lot of times with athletes, you're not thinking about them in a vulnerability piece, but when you've been through a lot of a season, the length of a season is tough. So you've been around guys or girls, and you've had to open up and build trust, and you only can lead people as far as they trust you. And so the vulnerability piece is critically important, because there's a really great connection to coachability. And what I know about athletes is they've been coached and they know the value of great coaching. And so when you start as a founder, and this is for any founder, whether they're an athlete or not, you need great advisors. And I'm not talking about the ones that are on the cap table under board of advisors because they're a part of the brand you want to be in or the exit that you want to have in the future. I'm talking about the person that's going to tell you when your shit doesn't stink, that's going to tell you to keep, like, you can go to and really ask them for advice and help in the moment, that critical moment of decision. And I think that athletes have been in on those moments a lot, and they understand what it takes to get through them.
Yeah, that's double clicking on that. That's a really underestimated thing. Like, the dark night of the soul is, I think, a little bit dramatized. It's of course true. We all have low moments in our lives, but in entrepreneurship, sometimes that's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then, you know what I mean?
Any day that ends with day.
Yeah. And then like the next week until maybe Wednesday, something good happens. Like sometimes it is like consistently rough. And
It could be months too. It's not just days. It could be months, quarters.
It could be months. Yeah, and I mean, not to be underestimated. Not that it's impossible, but it is not easy. And you really do have to have a long-term vision. I selfishly thinking about literally my kid's volleyball game last night. I have a junior in high school, second year on varsity. Sophomore year played really well, but like stepping it up this year. They had a five-setter last night. If you know volleyball, they were playing a team that they should beat. They lost some talent, from last year. In the fifth set, my kid, I was so proud of her. They were down 5-2, and we were texting. She was on the bench. She was texting. She shouldn't have been texting, but she was texting. She said, I know, I'm sorry. Former D1 volleyball coach right there. She said, it's still early. I loved that. I was like, go ahead. Okay, I got you. Still early, 5-2. It's only to 15 in the fifth set. But she knew game wasn't over. You know what I mean? That you got to have that mentality.
It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
That's right. And they won, by the way, 15-13.
Yeah, see, there you go. That text worked.
Got it. But it's so important. And you build that muscle. Athletes build that. They have to build that muscle. I mean, think about being in the NFL. And I've been on an NFL sideline, been lucky to be twice. And I'm 6'3", right? And I'm not small. I was physically intimidated, okay? Those guys take hits every single game, every single play, and they keep going because they have a vision in mind. It's the win, it's the team, it's the playoffs, whatever it is that keeps them going. It's impressive stuff. I need to save time for questions. I should be wrapping up soon? Okay, real quick, let me give you guys a run on, is there anything you're seeing that's interesting to you, that's new, you want to talk about in the field, thinking about athletes sort of as they sort of hit this new trajectory? What's interesting to you? I want to give you one last chance before I open it up.
I'll start it. Giving opportunities for the LPs. We're seeing a lot of athletes want to learn how to be an angel, how to sit into a pitch, just getting their feet wet and giving them opportunities to do that through deal flow and education. And then the second piece of the puzzle is a lot of them are asking to be coached. So if you have had an exit, if you have been there and done that as a founder, there's a lot of opportunity to come step up and be an advisor in a really great way. So I think that we're seeing that trend a lot. We're seeing amazing athletes create funds. Marquise is coming on next. You could, great example of how the impact that he's having. So really, really cool stuff happening. You're starting to see Andre Iguodala and these people. And then there's this other underground of athletes that you don't realize own a large share of companies that you love. That's right. Because they've been there from the beginning. They have people in their corner that's telling them great advice, and they're getting in early as an ambassador to a product that's going to hit the ground running. So I think there's a lot of great trends happening right now.
Very cool.
Yeah, a lot of the moves we've made, athletes have really leaned into this whole athletes as owners, and we, on behalf of them, have tried to do that. And you've seen it in other sports, mainly on the Players Association side. But what I think is interesting is that you're seeing the athletes really take the reins on that and becoming owners in companies, but owners in like sports teams and leagues and emerging leagues. And I'm really interested to see where that's going to take off.
Yeah, I would say I'm a beneficiary of it. You mentioned connections. And I'm seeing that athletes wants to give founders access to their connections. Of course, give and take, but often what separates point A to point B is access to relationships, access to strategic partnerships. And these athletes have that information. They have those contacts they can call and reach out, which is really helpful for founders like myself trying to grow and scale. So I'm seeing that access to connections and relationships is really helpful.
Love it. Excellent. Okay. I want to open it up for a few questions. I may have a chance for one or two. I see some hands here in the front. Here, I may come down. I'll be Vanna White. You can? Okay. Thank you.
Hello. I manage 10 NIL collectives, and some of them are 100K, 300K, or even a millionaire out of these collectives. And you keep saying get an outside advisor. So how do you recommend? Do you recommend someone outside of the college when you're saying advisors to advise them? Because a lot of these athletes are not going to go to that next level. What advice would you give them for coming up with a startup or investing? And what kind of advisor should they look for?
Yeah, it's a great question. Based on where they're located, I am sure there's a bunch of different business leaders or venture capitalists or firms that could be great advisors to them. And the key that you're asking for and what you're looking for in there is, how can I make the connection? How can I find somebody who's connected enough that when they sit down with Josh and Josh says, hey, my dream isn't to play basketball or football. My dream is to start a company or to build a real estate firm or to, build an Amazon brand. Whatever it is, that they can leave that meeting and connect them with the right person to give them the knowledge and the honesty and the trust to be able to help them get to the next phase. And I think that it's not this big person that with a big name and a big title. It's somebody that will meet them where they are at that moment and connect them without asking for anything in return, because that's a true advisor. So if they start to ask, I want this, I want that, red flag. But if they want to help because they care about their community and they care about this athlete, the response will be incredible. And that's what I would do for your people. Just go find that first person. And by the way, I'll give you my card. I'd be more than happy to help in any way. But yes, I would say that.
Double click. Just double click on that. People who take the long view. It's a great point. And he's a great connection.
Hey friends, Dr. Jen Fry.
Hey, Doc.
So yeah, I'm a former college volleyball coach for about 15 years, coached for a national championship when I was at Illinois. So if you went to UCLA, I hate you because y'all beat us. Just saying. And so I have a youth sport tech platform. We sit at the intersection of group travel and sports tourism, an area that's a huge blind spot. What advice would you give to me about finding athletes who are interested in that youth sport market and who are looking to dive a little deeper other than kind of the surface level wearables and things that we see people are latching onto?
I kind of give you an example of what I did. So my initial market was QSR, quick service restaurants, and then CPG brands, right? And when I closed the deal with the Reds, I didn't have a sports connect. I didn't know how the industry worked. And so I went through a sports tech accelerator called Plug and Play. And Plug and Play, I think, has 68 offices across the country. And they know, they have the relationships, the network, the knows, the do's, the don'ts, because they've written the playbook already. And I leveraged every moment. I seized literally, I went through it last year. To this day, they invite me to everything to speak. And that's like at the Tom Montgomery. We had the demo day in Dallas, Texas at the Star, and I was pretty much the last to go, you know, had the chance going and everything, and Ty was in the audience amongst many other athletes as well. And when I got off the stage, I was in the right place at the right time, you know, and Plug and Play made the connections. And so I would say align yourself with organizations who've done it already so you can skip wasting time and making mistakes that you probably would make if you didn't have them in line with you. That'd be my advice as a founder.
One more.
Hey there, I'm Harshit Garg. I'm a senior at the University of Maryland. I started my own sports business called Player Exchange. We're a marketplace where NFTs are used responsibly to represent athletes and sports teams. We're already NCAA certified. We're NAIA certified, and we're University of Maryland Athletics Department certified in our NIL framework. My question to you is, when looking for advisors, when looking for people who can give us those outside perspectives, what to look for? And now that I'm on the funding stage and trying to talk to venture capital and fund LPs, what things to think about, and what things can I look forward to?
Yeah, I think. What do you mean the first part?
Well, I was gonna go. I'll answer the second part, and we'll go. Sorry. What to look for in an advisor was the one that, and I'll give you some time to think. But the second part for the investing side and kind of how to find LPs that fit or find investors that might care about that area. Start looking at your competitors, or I have this saying, it's called imitate then innovate, right? And you know, when you think about the very best in your job, go find the people that are the very best. Now, you're going to look at them, see how they got there, what traits made them the very best, what was their path. But the difference is you can't be that person because you're you. And so there's the innovation part. So how do I take that knowledge and make it myself? Make it something that I can win at or be at. And I think that's the same way when it comes to finding great investors. Is go look at some of the competitors who have invested in it, who are known for that area or that industry. With the internet, you can find anything. With ChatGPT, you can find anything. Start there and go to the lowest person at that firm and just say, hey, I want some advice. This is what I'm building. How would you go about it? And start asking for mentorship versus investment. And what I've realized through time is the people that have invested or the people that we want to invest, it started out as a mentorship opportunity where they came to me and I was like, that person's pretty damn smart. They have a great work ethic and I love their idea. And so that was the start of how I dove in to say, hey, I might want to invest in this or I want to be a part of this. So that's where I would start. You want to answer the advisor part?
Yeah, I think that's right. And you know, I'd also look at NFTs as an interesting market, and I'd be interested to see where you're taking this. But like, you can also look to see. I would talk to everyone. I think it's good advice. You never know. You may talk to somebody and they have a level of expertise in an area that you weren't anticipating, which is always just a nice reward. But I think also looking at, you could also look at the folks that have done it and maybe it hasn't gone well, right? And learn those lessons on things to avoid. Is another area, and obviously NFTs has taken a very interesting path over the last few years. So, but yeah, I think coming to things like this, right? You never know who you meet in these sort of environments, and maintaining those relationships could really be fruitful.
I love it. Josh, Sophie, Patrick, thank you so much. Can you help me thank these great panelists, please?
Thank you all so much.
Excellent. Take a photo.